Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Well, welcome and thank you for your patience. We're here gathered at the Music Box for another Music Industry Mondays. Every week we bring people from the front line of the music industry in, experts in their field, to come and share their knowledge and insights and guide us through what can be a complicated and complex world, especially when it comes to music royalties and how artists get paid, how they get just reward for the success of their creativity, and how artists on the rise, grassroots artists, can access funding and help them build a foundation and momentum beyond their, their hobby and their inner circle of friends and family to build audiences and gain success. So hoping to get into some of that and more, I'd like you to give a warm welcome to Claire Rose from PRS.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hi.
Thank you for joining us, Claire. Feel free to adjust your mic as required.
It's very professional. I'm not used to this level of professionalism.
Well, we developed this during lockdown. Obviously, when we couldn't do sessions in the building with an audience, we still actually gathered here with the camera crew and did live stream events.
Amazing.
And then we're now doing a sort of hybrid where we've got audience and also recording. So the students and anyone else interested can come here to the Music Box and learn about the music industry, and then our students get to see the whole thing as a video stream tomorrow.
Amazing. Yeah, it's great.
So for those that are here, we will offer out the chance to ask Claire questions later. So have a think about stuff that you don't understand, that you need guidance on, that you want help with, anything you want to clarify. And in the meantime, we'll just have a little chin wag and see where we end up. So one of the things we ask is, want to demystify, the roles within industry, because, certainly within LCCM, we have people who are songwriters, who are artists. We also have music business students who want to find jobs in the industry. So it's always useful to hear people's personal story and what they actually do. So can you give us a little bit of background on you and your role and PRS and what that entails?
Yeah. I'm Claire. Hi. I have worked in the music industry for over 6 years, 7 years now. My background, it's not a very exciting story. I feel like loads of people like in the industry have a really exciting story, but mine's not really that exciting. I grew up in the Isle of Wight, and I fell in love with music. I wasn't really good at anything at school. Like, it wasn't bad, but I'd never had like that subject where I was like, oh, this is really cool. But I loved music, but I couldn't play an instrument. It was never put to me that I could, play anything really. And it kind of came from my dad. My dad is a massive music fan. Music, I was brought up around like punk, so like The Fall, Susie and the Banshees, but also Northern Soul. So my family is big Northern Soul fans as well. And they took me to festivals very young. So Isle of Wight Festival as well. And it was just kind of one of those moments where you're like, oh, I need to, I don't know how, but I want to work in music. So yeah, I didn't really know how, because when you're at school, well, especially like however many years ago that was for me, like I'm turning 30 this year. It wasn't really taught that you could be a tour manager or an artist, or even like people like PRS or PPL or stuff exist. It's like literally like you're a musician, that's kind of where you'd go. So I went to university. I went to Bucks New Uni. It was my only option actually, because I'm a very picky person. I only liked one course that was being offered, and that's where I kind of learned about PRS and PPL and the different rights, and it was just something that really kind of stuck with me. And then after that, I still didn't really know what to do with myself, because everyone I was on the course with was like, I want to be a manager and I want to be a record label, or I want to be a tour manager. I was like, I literally don't know. So I didn't want to move back to the Isle of Wight because there wasn't really anything for me there. And so I moved to Bristol on a bit of a whim. I'd never been there before, so there was a lot riding on it.
Straight from the Isle of Wight?
Well, from uni, from Bucks
from
uni, yeah, pretty much. I was just like, oh, I'll just move there. I had a few friends there. I had this music scene was really good, so I was just, I'll just go there. And then just worked in like a call center kind of job. And then my role, the role that I'm in now, came up. And it was kind of one of those things where on paper I was kind of underqualified, and my boss will even testify to that I was underqualified, because who is fully qualified to go into a music role when they come out of uni? It just never happens. Like, you're meant to get all this experience, but no one's willing to kind of give you experience. But I kind of knew I could do it. Like, I was like, I'm great at talking, as you've probably guessed. I do know my shit. Like, you know, I'm quite knowledgeable about stuff. And I'm really into my music, and I'm into my like emerging music as well, like artists and bands and stuff. So, I kind of went. I chewed my boss's ear off for about 2 hours. I remember talking about karaoke for some reason, and then they offered it to me, and then that's kind of been it, really. It was kind of a bit of go and make your contacts, because I look after the whole of the west of England and London as well. And it's quite daunting for someone who's just kind of fresh out of uni, like, oh, I don't actually know anyone, and I've literally just moved here. So I've been in part of the outreach team. I look after London, look after the West, and I've been there over 6 years now. Do lots of different things in my job. A lot of my job is talking, which I'm very good at. I put on events as well, so which can range from like big industry panel kind of type events, talking about like either the DIY approach to music, how to get sync, how to place your music in like games, or like I do a lot of work with like diversity and inclusion in the industry. So I work with a lot of women and a lot of women organizations as well. We do workshops. I attend a lot of events, so I'll sit on like panels at like Great Escape, and doing one in Leeds in 2 weeks as well with Come Play With Me. I travel everywhere. I literally travel everywhere. And I meet with bands, artists, managers, labels, artist representative, lawyers, music organizations, everything basically. And we run a talent program in my team as well. So we take data and we look at kind of emerging artists who we feel, or we kind of know are on that trajectory to go up and up and up. And we kind of had that one-on-one relationship with them. So we've had people like Idols and kind of Dua Lipa and Reggae Bowman, and people come through that as well. So it's a lot.
Great.
Basically.
I mean, all of that's really insightful. You said it wasn't interesting story, but no, it's fantastic, especially growing up on the Isle of Wight, where perhaps other than the festival, opportunities may have been fairly limited for you to sort of really dive into that culture. I think I was similar to you at school. You know, I wasn't that academic at the time. It's funny, being principal of a college. But, in history or English, I would, pretend to be reading my history book, but I'd actually have a copy of Smash Hits.
Yeah.
Or later on Music Week, and, genning up on latest pop music news or industry news. Out of interest, with all those organizations you mentioned in terms of outreach, are you now going out to schools to explain that the music industry is a good place to get a job, and all the different opportunities that are available?
Yeah. That's a big part of my job, actually, is going to different colleges and universities. And we're kind of looking how to, in my team, it's been like on our minds about going into like a younger establishments as well. It's quite difficult to get your head wrapped around royalties and stuff, but coming at it at a point like this is a viable career that you can go into, and this is how it works, basically. But yeah, I travel everywhere, do like DVS, college, ACM, BIM, Brit School, all of that stuff. We'll go in and talk about PRS or funding or just career advice, or I do a lot of talks with like women and marginalised genders as well. So yeah, we do all of that stuff.
Well, because we're part of UK Music's academic partnership group, a lot of those other institutions, their students have access to the video that we're making tonight, so you can wave, say hello. So it's good, and it's great. It's such important work, and I don't know why. Why do you think schools are so bad at this? Why does the music industry never feature in their kind of lists of possible careers? I did going back a while, but I did a sort of Myers-Briggs style test at school with the careers service, and they were like, "Oh, you should go into hospitality or retail," but it
Yeah.
was never like, "Oh, you love music, why don't you pursue that?"
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's. Feel like it's definitely changing, which is great. But it was, yeah, that time where I was at school, it just was never. Yeah, it was never put to me, and because I wasn't playing a musical instrument, like everyone at GCSE level had to take like music when I was at school. And then because I wasn't good at anything, you're kind of banished to the back of the classroom. And I was on one of those keyboards where you just keep pressing DJ loads of times. I'm sure there's people that do remember that, like somewhere, but you just used to. And then, that wasn't happening. But yeah, I'm not sure. I think there's a lot of things where people don't actually understand, like how the industry works is a massive thing as well. Um, and obviously with like budgets and stuff, and there's lots to talk about that's being cut, which is really really disappointing. But yeah, it's a really strange one. I think people don't necessarily understand how it works, maybe, or that it is a viable career. But I think that's why we need more things like this, and like more specialist colleges as well, to actually say, you can go into a career as a songwriter, or or a composer, or a music publisher, but then or a tour manager, or an agent or something like that. But there also are other jobs like working at PRS Music, working like lecturing at colleges or universities, or all these different kind of organizations that are there, that we do employ people. Like everyone that works for PRS loves music and were in some sort of, majority of them in some sort of band or have a band going on at the same time. So yeah, I don't know. I think it wasn't really put to me, like I'm sure my mum and dad were mine, that I could go into a career in music when I was like 15. It is, you just see it on telly and like, I want to be a pop star, but that wasn't me really.
Yeah.
But that's it. And then you're like, no, well, you can't sing, you can't play a musical instrument, but it doesn't necessarily mean there's more to that, I think. So I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen, like definitely at like schools, like at a younger level, to kind of say, you could go into the industry if you can't sing or whatever.
The industry kind of goes through waves, and you can kind of tell what aspect of the industry is most important by the type of people who get promoted within organizations. And the diversity thing is quite interesting, obviously, because you're seeing organizations take action on that, and some great progress there. The other thing is, we've had waves of, A&R being the most important division, and, the A&R people becoming the label presidents, and you've had, marketing or legal being the main thing, and those people rise to the top. At the moment, I think because of the huge boom in music streaming and the internationalization of that, people who really understand royalties, and can really delve into what it all means, it means that you're seeing a lot of people with a background working for PRS or similar are now suddenly being promoted within their organizations. So it seems like it's a great place for a graduate to get a job and really learn the business.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, I think I'm really glad I did my course and learnt about PRS and PPL and MCPS. We like to abbreviate everything in the music industry. It's really helpful.
And they're so similar, the acronyms.
So annoying.
How confusing is it?
Oh, it's so annoying. Like, I always get it all the time from like artists and bands. I'm like, okay, are you PPL? Oh, no. Okay, you're PRS. No, that's what PPL do. So you need to go, and it's just like, oh, can we not simplify? It's so annoying.
And what makes it even more complicated is, we spend a long time, as the students will say, making sure they know the difference between PRS and PPL. And then you guys go and merge,
oh yeah,
one form or other form of your operations, and then it's like, is it one organization? Is it two? Is it three? What's going on here?
Yeah, you all thought a career in music was going to be easy. We make it super hard for everyone, basically. But yeah, I'm so glad that I kind of learned all about that stuff, because I think it's such a core of the industry. No matter who you are, or like if you are a songwriter or if you are a manager or label, you need to understand what rights there are and who deals with what. Like, I teach music publishing to second year students at my old uni, and we're kind of going through all of that. And I was saying to you, their assessment's due tomorrow, and one of them was like, to be honest, I really didn't really like publishing at the start. Like, I really hated it, but I actually really like it now. I was like, yes.
Well done.
But yeah, but then, like, you know, if you're a manager, and I deal with managers because sometimes managers will do their artist PRS for them, like the admin side, you know, that is income for your artist or your band to therefore hopefully put back into their music. So you need to understand that they are signed up with PPL, they are signed up with MCPS if their music's like on a physical product, and they need to make sure that, you know, they're on PRS, they've got all their songs registered, and they're submitting their set list, because it's important money that is going to come through to them. You know, publishing is great as well. Like, sounds really nerdy, but I do really like publishing. I think that's a great career to go into as well. And I think, yeah, it's just such a key thing to know. These are the pockets. This is what you'll need to do. And it's weird because sometimes, like, I'll deal with like a band or an artist who are, you know, getting played on like Six Music or something like that. And I didn't know I could get played for my live shows. And I'm like, oh no, like, how many years have you been performing live? And oh God, like, I really hope you can kind of, like, you're in time so you can backclaim for them, because, you know, kind of thing. So yeah, it's super important. I think once you got your head wrapped around it, it's all right. It did take me a while. So
For many songwriters, or probably all songwriters, anyone that's enjoyed any level of success, you know, PRS Day, you know, end of June is like the best day of the year. I used to call it pennies from heaven. You know, just when you thought your operations, you know, as a business person or an artist, were going to be difficult to get through the next stage, you're like, we need investment, we need this. Oh no, that tour is going to cost too much. Suddenly you get your PRS Day statement and you're like, yes. We can keep
absolutely
going.
Absolutely, 4 times a year: April, July, October, and December are really happy days sort of thing. Especially like, because my team, because we deal one-on-one with members, it's really nice to kind of get someone who needs to join, and then see that kind of reward come through. And that's really nice. And, you know, like, I've been to festivals before, and it's like, you're that PRS lady, because there's only like, my team, there's only 4 of us. Like, I'm the only woman, so I'll get that quite a lot. Like, you're that PRS lady, and I'll be like, oh, okay. Oh yeah, we sorted out our PRS. It's all coming through now. It's all great. Like, we're getting paid for like our international stuff and stuff like that. But yeah, it's nice. I think some people kind of always say, oh, it's like free money, but it's like, it's not. It's money that you've earned because it's your work that you're playing or performing that others are benefiting from. So it's trying to also see that benefit. And I think once they kind of understand that bit, the rest of, like, oh, okay, I get that now. I get what PRS does, and I get what PPL does, and MCPS, that will come. I always say, like, PRS and PPL first, and then go on to MCPS.
Okay, so for once and for all, you know, the ultimate, you must have distilled it down to a elevator pitch. What is PRS? Who should be members? How do they get paid?
Okay, so PRS for Music is a royalty distribution. I'm not going to say it like that, but that is normally like my go-to. So we are a royalty distribution collection society. So our members are songwriters, composers, and publishers. But basically, what that means is anyone who writes music. So you could be a media writer, so you don't actually perform, but you just write music for like film, TV, and games, which is a great career to go into because it pays extremely well. You could be like a non-performing songwriter, so you don't perform at all. You just write lyrics and give it to another performer, or like a big pop star. You could be like a DJ. A lot of DJs or electronic music producers don't necessarily see themselves as songwriters, but they are writing music. And then basically, you know, we distribute them royalties or money when their music is performed to the public. So that could be anything like radio, TV, live. So if you're playing like, if we were in a duo, me and you, and we
can start now.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Get those royalties in. I'm the expert. I could do all the PRS admin. We wrote a 5-track EP, and we took it down the local pub and performed it. it's still a live performance, even though it's at an open mic night and a small venue. We'd still get a royalty from that, and that's going through from small shows right up to like your Wembley stadiums, to your festivals like Glastonbury, Pyramid Stage. It's still being performed to the public. Downloads and streaming as well. So when you're hearing all this music on Six Music, One Extra, or Radio One, there is a royalty behind that that's going to that artist because it's being played by the public. So that's the PRS. So it's pretty much if we take our kind of duo here, if we both write music, we need to join PRS to get our songwriting royalties, which you might know as publishing royalties as well. We have a joining fee, so it's £100 joining fee, which it lasts for a lifetime, no annual recurring fees. That's kind of in place. It has changed over the years, but I think what we want is for people to make sure that they're at the right time to join. I always think there's a right time to join PRS. Like, there's no point if we've just written one song and we've never played live and we're not doing anything in the next 6 months, we're going to pay £200 each because we both need to join because we'll share the songwriting splits. We won't see that £200 back in 6 to 9 months. So it's normally a time where you feel like you're going to get that £100 back in royalties within the 6 to 9 months. So you should have already done stuff like having stuff on radio or doing a lot of live shows, and you've got stuff in the future, because we don't want people to join, pay £100 and then don't see it back for 3 years, because that's not very fun. So we want people to join at a right time that's beneficial for them, really.
What sort of level of exploitation would be enough to get that £100 back in a year? 12
gigs in like a small open mic night, or like a small venue. Radio is different and TV is different because we pay out on a permanent basis and they fluctuate. So the more popular the radio station or TV station, the higher the royalty. So like BBC Radio 2 is actually the most popular station. So I think it's something like ridiculous. Like, it's not going to go down right to the exact amount because it does fluctuate, but it's like £29 per minute. So if you've got a 3-minute track being played once on Radio 2, you've pretty much made that £100 back. But then as the stations kind of decrease in like listeners size, so like BBC Six Music I think is only like £4 per minute. It's still £4 per minute though. And the same with telly. So BBC One is the most popular, so it's about £90 per minute. So if you get your song put in EastEnders on the radio or the Queen Vic, or write something for, I don't know, David Attenborough's just come out, isn't it? Well, then you're on for a money win. Yeah. So those are normally things, the main ones I'll go for. Downloaded streaming is very different, as we all know. It doesn't pay very well. Hopefully that will change soon. So you need a substantial amount of streams and downloads to generate £100. But because streaming and downloading is also seen as physical products, you need to be a member of MCPS as well. So yeah, you need like 1.1 million streams ad funded to generate around £100. Right. And you have to be a member of like both society. Again, streaming like fluctuates in terms of like, but that's kind of like averagely what we'd say. So, if I'm speaking to like an artist who's got like 10,000 streams and they don't necessarily do anything else, it's kind of that difficult conversation, like, are you going to do anything else? Like, keep an eye on it, maybe like in a couple of months' time, have a look and then think about joining, kind of thing. So yeah, those are the kind of average estimates I'd normally give people.
And by joining PRS, they don't automatically join MCPS? PRS
No.
for music license? No?
Nope. So they are two separate kind of organizations. MCPS do those kind of like services through us. So MCPS is another abbreviation. And I always find it was the one that I really struggled to get my head around. But basically, it is it deals with a mechanical right within a song. And basically what that means is every time a piece of music is reproduced or copied onto like a physical product, so like CD, a vinyl, cassettes are making comebacks. Downloads and streams are considered physical products as well. TV programs, films, games. There is a royalty there. So it doesn't mean like, I don't know, back in my day where I used to burn music onto a CD and then scribble over it on a Sharpie. Doesn't mean you can do that and then sell it at your gigs, because like there's no way of us knowing. But if it's commercially sold as something like Rough Trade or Sister A or something like that, then there is a royalty from MCPS.
But if you're trying to press your own vinyl, the pressing plant will generally, especially if it's in the UK, will ask for a evidence of an MCPS
Yes,
license.
yeah. And then like a lot of people that don't, the kind of application form for MCPS is a little bit outdated. So when it asks you for proof of like a physical product, you can just put like a link to a stream. You don't have to put like a sleeve or anything. So always PRS if you're a writer first, PPL if you perform on your recordings second, or at the same time preferably. And then once you're at a point where your music's on physical products, get on MCPS. That's normally the way I do it.
So if your members, if they're a songwriter who is also a performer, then they need to join both P organizations, PRS and PPL.
Yeah. So PPL, very like quite similar. A lot of our members are members of PPL, but basically, and sorry if you already know this, but PPL look after sound recordings, so they look after the performers on the recording. So basically anyone that's made an audible contribution. So if we did like recorded REP and then, I'm really sorry, but the cameraman was like, I'm going to come in and I'm going to click. I'm going to do a really cool click. But we kind of wrote that kind of line. He's still making an audible contribution. So therefore you would be entitled to a royalty from PPL. So I'm going to start doing that now. I'm going to go into all the studios and just clap and click and get a royalty.
The legend is, you can correct me, you probably know if I'm wrong, that some of the highest earning songs are TV theme tunes because they are on so often on, for example, Saturday Night TV, X Factor or whatever. And the other rumor is that Simon Cowell likes to play triangle on all his groups and his TV themes just to earn a few extra bob.
Yeah, I've heard that rumor. I don't know how true it is, but I have heard that rumor. That I used to go in and clap on a studio or ding a triangle. I mean, if it's true, which I don't know if it is, that's pretty smart business to me. Like I probably would do the same. So if you're making an audible contribution, you're a performer, and therefore you're entitled to a royalty, and also like the master rights holder. So basically what that means is anyone who pays for the recording to be recorded owns the masters. So could be the record label, but if you're all self-releasing and you pay for your own studio time, or you make your music in your bedroom setup, then you're your own master rights holder and you own all those rights. So we could have our duo, have our 5-track EP. We will need to be PRS members to get our songwriting royalties. We both perform on that recording, so we need to be PPL. We're independent. We own our master rights, so we need to be on PPL for our master rights. And then, in 6 weeks' time, when we're topping the charts with our vinyl sales, we'll obviously join MCPS as well. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Everyone following? Nobody confused? Remember, there'll be questions later.
Maybe you can admit.
Maybe we'll ask questions, see if they followed it. The other urban myth, I'm not sure if you can confirm or deny, it's probably a load of rubbish, but that a rogue employee at PRS once changed their name by deed poll to copyright control, set up a bank account, and then siphoned off a load of funds.
I've never heard that, actually, but I'm going to ask about it tomorrow. I'm going to text my team after this and ask about it. But I've never heard that. That's amazing.
Because the PRS money will generally go out via publishers or to the songwriters directly?
It can be both. So if you're signed to a publisher, if you're not signed to a publisher, you technically are your own publisher. So you're self-publishing. But if you're signed to a publisher, it is their role to do your PRS admin for you. So they will register all your tracks, make sure everything's set up properly, do your live performance, submit your live shows and stuff like that. Basically, when you're off busy touring and you don't have any time for the admin, because let's face it, it is quite boring. I hate admin. That publisher will take that off you, so you can get on with the creative side and tour and stuff like that. But if you are not signed to a publisher, you will do that all yourself. So you'll register all your tracks and the money will flow through to you yourself. What happens when a publisher comes on board? They will take the mechanical royalties. They can take a percentage of your performing, but we make sure that they can only, the writer has to have 50%, depending on what level publisher you go with. But they'll take their cut, which is normally like 80-20. That they'll keep 20 and give 80 to the writer, but again, completely dependent on the deal. But if you're unpublished, then you'll get all of it.
Okay, so yeah, so if someone is copyright control, it means they don't have a publisher, and therefore you would aim to find them and distribute directly.
Yeah, so sometimes if, for example, I'm dealing with a band, let's say of 4 people, and 3 of them are members and 1 of them's not, there will be like, normally 4 bands will split everything equally, majority of the time, 80% of the time, so each one will get 25%. If that 25% is not accounted for, then it will sit in this thing called like 97 account copyright, and it will just sit there and wait to be claimed, basically. But everything else goes out to the writers. Basically.
What happens if 3 of those 4 writers say that they've split it equally and everyone's on 25%, but one of them tries to be a bit cheeky and registers for 30% or more, and there's a mismatch? What happens to the money then?
It's very common. Yeah, there's a massive saying in the industry where there's a hit, there's a rip, basically, and yeah, people want to claim on things all the time. But it gets flagged up, and then it goes to it basically won't let you kind of go through because it has to add up to 100%. So it can't go like 99% or 110. It has to add up to 100% on the system. But sometimes people will potentially like make a claim, and if it's not what it should be or it will flag internally. And then, or like the members can raise a dispute. We don't get involved in the legal side because it's third party and they need to sort it out, but we will freeze that kind of any royalties being distributed from that track until they've resolved it.
Okay.
So we don't get involved in like, oh, you should have 30, you should have like 70. It is completely down to them, and if they want to sort it out themselves or get lawyers involved, that's fine, but we just freeze it, and then yeah.
But it pays to agree these things in the studio when you write the song.
Honestly, get everything in writing. Like I'm one of those people that wouldn't, because honestly, I'm so awful at stuff like that. But I've over 7 years now of being in the industry and people saying like, but I had 10% on that, or they're not doing this, or this is wrong. Like, and my first question is, do you have it in writing? Do you have a song share agreement, which are free to download from the MU, by the way? Get it in writing. Like, I was dealing with someone the other day. It's like, oh, they should have 60. My client should have like 60 and they should have 40. And it's like, there's nothing we can do. Like, that is down to you in that conversation. And trust me, like, I know going into a studio, and probably even harder with your mates, like if you're in a band with your mates or like writing with a friend, talking about that kind of stuff is it's not nice, is it? It's not like, depending on who it is.
Especially in the early days where you're just making music together, you don't want to be nitty gritty on sharing money at that point.
Yeah, like I think, if I was in a kind of band with my girlfriends, like it would be really awkward to be like, right, let's talk about money. How much am I getting? Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Like, let's get that in writing. Sign here, please. You don't have to say it like that, but it's not a glamorous conversation, but it is so important. And normally, like, if outside of my role at PRS, I do know a lot of my friends are in bands and stuff, and I'll normally say, like, if you're songwriting with someone else, just 2 of you, maybe start at 50, split it equally, and then if you feel like you're going over, or that person is writing more, then maybe rediscuss it. But at least you've planted that seed early, and then get it in writing and sign it. because that's what that's what will hold
I
down.
guess when you're sharing equally, it's an easy conversation. It's
Yeah.
uneven.
I think that's really common now. Like majority of people that I kind of know will be like, oh yeah, we just split everything equally. It's just easier, you know. But you do get the exceptions, and they're quite common as well, and that's absolutely fine. I think there is a definite thing of knowing your worth in the industry, and you know, not bowing down and saying, oh, okay, I only have 20. Like, no, you get that 50. That's what I would say.
Now, obviously, there's been a big thing over the last 18 months with the coronavirus pandemic, sort of really affecting, especially live music. There's been a tighter focus on earnings on streaming, you know. So the crisis has bled over, and we've had this parliamentary inquiry. On the publishing side, you know, there wasn't as much in the inquiry as I was expecting in terms of songwriters or songwriter organizations really fighting for a bigger slice of the pie. Because it seems strange to me that the kind of the distribution of the physical era has been carried forward to digital, and that there's still the dominant kind of master's side in terms of earnings. There's also an imbalance between how the money is then kind of, or licenses are made, and the distribution of money on the two sides. So on the masters, it's purely considered to be a making available, and the record label grants a license, collects all the money. On the publishing side, it's split between whether it's considered to be a mechanical reproduction or a public performance. You know, can you give us any insight on that, and whether you think that the share of streaming for songwriters you think may change? Or
I don't know when it will change. I really hope it will. Like on a personal level, I'm a big advocate for that changing, and songwriters being paid fairly, because I would be really pissed off. Like if I wrote that song and I was getting like pennies, like that would really annoy me. I know that my CEO and PPL CEO Peter, they both were on the inquiry as well. It was quite interesting. I know that, you know, from a PRS perspective, we'll do everything to champion our members and get a better deal for our members, and stuff like that. But yeah, I can see why people get really irate, and then people don't put their music on streaming services. And obviously, going back to what I said with MCPS and streaming and downloads, they are seen as physical products. So a stream and a download is split between PRS and MCPS. So a stream is 50% each. So 50% comes to PRS members, and 50% goes to MCPS. For a download, 75% goes to MCPS and 25% goes to PRS. So, you know, if you are just a PRS member, you're only getting 25% of your downloads and 50% of your streams. So if you have a substantial amount, you need to join both, which is, again, another £100.
right.
So to join MCPS, so if you're basing it just off streams, it's quite, and you need a really good amount of streams, it's quite difficult. But yeah, I really hope it changes soon, because a lot of like my friends and bands that I work with, like, have streams, but literally, and you see it on Twitter all the time, like it's on Twitter all the time, like Crispin Hunt and Tom Gray have broken record, and it's really interesting. And I think if you haven't read about the inquiry, do, like, because I think it's going to be a massive talking point. I've encouraged all my publishing students to as well. So, but yeah, I mean, hopefully soon. Fortunately, I don't have any inside knowledge. I wish I did, though.
No problem at all. I mean, it could be a transitional thing, obviously, as people, you know, come to terms with it. The earning potential of streaming could be actually much higher than the old model, because if you make good music, you're paid for every single play from every single one of your fans. You know, not forever, but potentially for the life of copyright. Very, very long time, 70 years after your death. For a songwriter. So it could be, who knows how long streaming will last, what will replace it. But it could be that, you know, even a moderately successful songwriter, repeated, you know, that level of success every year for, you know, their lifetime, it could be a better thing. But I think one of the challenges for artists and songwriters is that the return on investment, or the return on their time, is now so elongated and stretched out, it's hard, even when you're moderately successful, to keep going, because you're like, where's the funds going to come to fund this next stage?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was one thing that really shocked me when I first started my career in the industry, where I was like, you see all these people on like telly and like being played, and you think they're like, and like some of them are like, some of them are like obviously like absolutely minted, but there's a lot of people that I've like realized that, oh, actually like that won't get you as much as I thought it was. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, and that's why I kind of, when people do join PRS, I'll normally say like on a personal level, like, you know, this could be money that you reinvest into yourselves. Like, as tempting as it is to, I don't know, like spend money, go and get loads of records, or I don't know, go on ASOS, because that's normally what I would do, and spend on your money, hard-earned money. Like, reinvesting is such an important thing, and yeah. But I mean, there's loads of things out there like now, funding initiatives and stuff like that. But I kind of thought it was just the back in the day style, where it's like you just get signed, you make a big hit, and then you get signed, and then you've got a Lamborghini and £1 million house, and it's not really like that at all. Unless you go really viral and get a really tasty advance from a label, it's not like that at all. But it's not doom and gloom. That is great. But
so, what would your advice be to someone starting out? Perhaps they have generated a fan base and they've got 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 monthly listeners, and that's all adding up to what they think is significant level of awareness and streams, and maybe they're getting people down to their live shows. Fingers crossed they carry on happening. Today's theme was charities and fundraising. How can they access funds to keep going, to keep making music?
Yeah, I mean, just to pick on your first question, I think the first thing I would recommend is knowing what the music business, like knowing the music industry, it's really big, and there's a lot of information like PRS and MCPS and PPL, which is very confusing to get your head wrapped around. But think about what you want as your career. Like some of my friends were like, I just want to be signed, and that was success to them, which is fine. Like, everyone has levels of success, but can you do it yourself? And can you do it yourself for a certain period so you retain your rights? And if you retain your rights, you retain your control, your creative control, and more money. I feel like I'm a big advocate for the DIY personally, so I always feel like, but then I'm always like, there will come a time where you will need a manager, and you will need a record label, and you will need a publisher, because you cannot go on tour and do big shows. Well, you could, but it would be very difficult to uphold all of those responsibilities, because if you're DIY, you're your own label, you're a booking agent, your tour manager, your manager, like your lawyer, everything. And if you're in a band, like 4-piece band, sometimes it's a little bit easier, because like some bands that I deal with, like, you're the social person and you're the PRS person. Like, normally that's what I do. If I meet a band, I'll be like, who's the PRS person? Because there's always one normally that will do it.
Who's the one with their head screwed on?
Yeah. And someone will be like a record label or something. Low Island are a band. They're really, really lovely, and they're a really good example of this. I did a Instagram live with them a few weeks last year, and they were saying like, he does the record label and I'm kind of the manager, and they kind of share it that way. But if you're on your own, that's very difficult to do everything yourself and be creative. So knowing that the business is really important, and where your money is coming from as well. Understanding your fans is very important. Being authentic as well. I think like some of my favorite like social media, because we all doom scroll. I do it all the time, but it's just bands and artists that are just so unapologetically authentic. Like, there's a band called Courting, and they're brilliant on Twitter, and Sports Team, and there's a band called Thank from Leeds as well, and it's just funny stuff. Like, some of it's not even to do with music, and it's just funny shit. And I'm just like, this is cool, it's keeping me entertained. So being authentic is really important. But also knowing about what is out there in terms of funding. Like, not a lot of people understand or know that there is funding for music out there, which is like not a loan. like it is a grant that you are given and you don't pay back. So that knowing about that kind of stuff is really important as well. And talking to people, like I think, and being nice, like, is a big thing. Like, I deal with a lot of people, and sometimes you won't get the nicest emails, and it's a bit like, oh, I'm gonna have to because it's my job, but you're not being very nice to me, sort of thing. So being nice can get you a long way, because I think a lot of people say it's not about like what you know, it's who you know. I kind of disagree with that. I do think there is a side of who you know. Like, I will generally help people that, like, who I deal with at PRS, like bands and artists, and be like, oh, you should go and check out this manager who I know, you know, who would be really cool. So I'll definitely pass them over. Or like if they're looking for a publisher, or I'll kind of do my recommendations like on a personal side as well, or like a label or whatever. But that can go a long way. But yeah, bringing it back onto funding, there is so many funding opportunities out there. Like PRS Foundation, we obviously a big funding organisation. The Arts Council as well. Centric, who are a publisher, kind of like a new model of publisher. They've got like an artists fund as well. And yeah, it's just, let's face it, making music and sustaining a career in music is quite expensive because you need equipment and studios and tour and a tour van to go on tour, and hotel rooms if if you don't want to sleep in the van over Christmas and stuff like that, over cold months. So it's expensive to do and to make. So especially during COVID, live like completely went, which is one of our biggest sources of income. So it's quite difficult to see that. So yeah, I mean, I do. So the PRS Foundation is the UK's leading funder of new music across all genres, and I kind of rep for them, and I'll sit on their judging panels and review applications and help with applications as well. And the amount of applications we had last year was just insane. Like it was just ridiculous. And you're kind of reading through all these applications, and it's like, due to the pandemic, it's like, oh my God, if I could give you all money, I would. Like, yeah. I really would. Like, so.
Where does the money for PRS Foundation come from? Is it a percentage of all the royalties collected?
So we do a lot of donation but the biggest amount of donation into the foundation, which is why it's called the PRS Foundation as well. And it's like a really beneficial mutual kind of relationship, because obviously people who come through the foundation, like artists and bands and organizations as well, they'll become PRS members. They'll already be at a time when they're getting royalties from PRS, or they should be. And they fund organizations, so talent development organizations as well, who I work really closely with in my area, and my other colleagues do in the north and in the east as well. But it's all funneling back into the industry. So I think there was something like a stat, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was like every £1 put into a particular fund called the MIM12 fund, and like double for the industry, because it's getting exposure and there's new music, and we make good music in the UK. I think yeah. So. But yeah, it's from a variety of different places, but a majority of the donation comes in from.
And do you think some of these funds have become more necessary, as you talked about DIY or not DIY, but generally everyone has to start as DIY because labels, publishers maybe aren't signing, instinctively they're wanting to see momentum first. And so a fund like PRS Momentum, or the other grants available, the other organizations you talked about, are they filling a gap in order to get people to the stage where the other organizations want to get involved?
Yeah, I think so. So the foundation, PRS Foundation, we got a number of different funds. So you've got your entry level funds, and then you've got your kind of like next level funds as well. So your entry level funds are things like the Open Fund and the Women Make Music Fund as well. So entry level fund, you could have written your first song or your 100th, or played one show or 10,000 shows, whatever. It's grants of up to £5,000, can be used for like recording EPs, single releases, all that kind of stuff. So normally, like, I guess part of my role is to kind of distinguish what point someone is to point them in the right direction. So they're your kind of entry level funds, and then kind of next steps are international showcase funds. So if you get kind of invited to play at something like Eurosonic, was online this year, or is going to be online, and then or South by Southwest, costs a lot of money to get there because it's in Texas. So that can help with that kind of costs and visa and accommodation. And then you got Momentum Fund. So Momentum Fund is £15,000. As you probably guessed from the name, is for artists and bands with momentum behind them. And at that point, you are kind of expected to have a team or be building a team. So it might not necessarily mean that you are signed to like Universal or Sony or the major players, but you might have a manager on board, and you might have a booking agent, or you might be with a publisher or something like that. It is expected at that point that after that, you will tip over and, be pretty solid, really. So I think it's a massive gap. I think it's great that these funds exist, because it's always nice to kind of see people that you enjoy, or especially that I deal with, who I really like, and then it's like, oh yeah, that's great, there's going to be a new album now. Kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's super beneficial, like obviously for them, but the industry as a whole as well. Like
you mentioned managers and teams, and I think perhaps one of the risks here is that applying for any of these funds requires you to fill a form out, and creative people maybe aren't the best form fillers. Yeah. And does that mean that perhaps the money goes to people who are really good at admin and not people who are really good at music? Or do you think there's enough kind of intermediaries, managers, whatever, getting involved to try and
I think the first thing, anyone that's applying for funding, I'd be like, just reach out to like me or them or the foundation. Definitely I totally get what you mean with form filling. I am honestly crap at filling out forms. Like, I'm a very creative person. Like when my boss asked me to do a spreadsheet, I'm like, oh God, I can't really. It's like the worst, and I'll put it off and I'll make it worse for myself. But anyway, we don't necessarily ask you to use like big jargon words. Like, it is just basically when we score, it's you're scoring on the music. Like, is it good music? Like, and how is the application? Like, if you wanted to bullet point, you can bullet point. That's what I would do. But there are certain things that I would normally say if you are filling out an application, just get someone to look over it and give yourself time. Because sometimes I've read through applications and I've kind of got to the end and I'm going, oh, that was super brilliant. That was brilliant. Get it, and then I'm like, but it doesn't actually say what they're applying for. So they've told me how great the music is and like how it's going to benefit them and their community. And then I'm like, I don't actually know what you want, like, kind of things. So like stating that in the first two sentences is like, bang, yeah, I know
what you need.
Now I can go down and judge the rest and understand why you're doing that or you're doing that. Budget, you've got to do a budget in there, and the more specific you can do it, the better. So if you need studio time for a recording an EP, don't just put £2,000 for studio time. Tell me how many hours you're doing in that studio. What is the per hour rate? Break it down, and I can be like, yeah. Basically, it's doing your research. I always say to people who are applying, like, okay, let's say, for example, if we were both applying for funding, right, and you guys were our judging panel, and my application was, like, amazing, like, down to the T, and yours was just like, I just want to record an album.
Just give me some money.
Basically, who are you going to give it to? Like, hopefully me. Like, I'd like to think so. Like, so kind of pushing. Funding is so competitive to get. So fucking competitive to get. So the more you can make yourself stand out and be really, like, on it, then the better. And we understand that things change. Like, that happened the whole way of the pandemic. So it doesn't even need to be like, I don't know, we don't know if that's going to happen. Like, that's fine. Like, but I will say, like, to people, if you're recording an album, what kind of people are you going to work with? Do you know anyone that you are in talks with? And you can write that down. And again, that's showing us that you've done your research, or like, if you're saying, like, for example, you want money to go on tour or something like that, give me kind of like numbers, like where are your fans? Why are you going there? Like, yeah, and be really realistic, I think, as well. There's a lot of things in there, but it doesn't matter if you're like, I'm not the greatest at spelling and grammar. That doesn't necessarily matter. You can have someone look over it, but get in those points that what you need.
And I presume the judging panel are pretty open minded in terms of genre, types of artists, even the kind of form of exploitation of music. Could people who are just making music for film or adverts apply? Could people just making TikTok videos,
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a business proposal, isn't it? Like, really, at the end of the day, I hate using that term, but it makes it all feel really corporate, like The Apprentice. But yeah, only because it's on at the moment. I've been watching it; it's in my head. But it is like a business proposal. So all across genres, like as well, like and regions. Like, I think people have this assumption that it's just people from London, but it's definitely not. Like, at the foundation, they've got talent development partners across the UK. So, like, I've got one in Bristol called Saffron Records, and it's a female, non-binary, and gender fluid, and other gender minorities kind of label and development organization. They want, like, we have talks to the foundation every year. We're like, yeah, we want more people from the West to be applying. So can you go out and spread that news? Or we want more people from the North, or we want people from the East, that kind of thing. So really, like, widely spreading it. It's really, really important to them, I think, as well.
So it could be a folk musician in Scotland, a jazz player or a songwriter in Bristol, and they're not necessarily aiming to top the charts. They're just trying to get to the next stage of their career.
Absolutely, exactly. Like, when you look back at the kind of grantees, like, it's a real mix of jazz, of dance music, of which I know is an area like they definitely want to delve deeper into as well. Punk music, pop music, all of that kind of stuff. Like, and that's really handy, I think. And I think that representation is really key. That it's not just like rock bands or pop artists, but yeah, like we work really closely with like Tomorrow's Warriors, a jazz collective, jazz lines, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, real broad. And it's the same for my team because we work with all the members with all different like genres. I mean, I didn't realize how many niche genres there are. There are thousands of like niche genres, and it's just like, wow, that is mental. But yeah, so
it's when you start to feel old, or when I start to feel old, I ask the new students as they arrive what their favorite genre is, and someone's like trap soul, and I'm like, trap soul, is that one genre or two?
Yeah, like there's a lot of like really niche metal genres, I find, which is quite cool, and they've all got like really quite terrifying names, which I really like. But and then it's like, oh, okay, and then when I come across one like, you've never heard of it, have you? And they're like, no, and then they play it. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that is niche, that's cool. But yeah, it doesn't matter what genre. The whole point of it is getting you or them to the next level of their career. That's the whole point. How is it going to benefit you and therefore the fans and the music? Like, if you and I think one of the key things is applying in the sense of saying, if we don't get this money, this is not going to happen. But applying in the sense of saying, okay, it will happen, but what that means is this album could either be at this level or it could be at that level. And with that level is going to be a better sound quality. We're going to benefit as musicians and songwriters by working with different people. And the overall product will be better as well, which obviously means in the long term more money coming through into the artist's pocket, and therefore, like, if they don't tour that's going into venues' pockets as well. So everyone's like benefits really,
and more, they're successful, more performance royalties, more mechanicals. It all feeds back into the system.
Absolutely, yeah, it is a complete ecosystem that feeds back in. Yeah. But yeah, all genres, anyone.
Fantastic. I'm gonna open up to the audience now. Has anyone got any questions? Do you all understand, PRS? And everything they do from royalty collection through to the funding that Claire's just outlined. Any questions?
hope that means I've done my job well.
It's all clear. So they'll all be acing their exam the first year.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a couple more questions. You said you sit on the judging panel for the Foundation Awards. So what's been your proudest kind of support or artist that your foundation has backed, and what they go on to achieve?
I have a special one. It's a band called Muncie Girls, and I helped them with their application as much as I could, and it was several phone calls back and forth, and yeah, can you look at that? Can you look at that? And I don't judge anyone that I like help. Like, I don't do it all the time. It's like as and when, like if work isn't like mad busy, then I can do. But they were, I remember, they applied for Momentum Fund for their album Fixed Ideals. And it was a lot back and forth. And then, I don't know why, but I was just like really into it because I really liked them as a band anyway. It's like my kind of music. And they're generally a lovely bunch as well, like very, very sweet. And I remember going into London and getting a text like, we've got it. And I was just like, honestly, like so happy because they put so much effort into it, like checking it back and forth. So that was like my first Momentum kind of success. And I really believed in it and I really wanted them to get it as well. So that was probably one of my proudest, I think.
Fantastic. Brave of them, or did they reach out to you or did you reach out to them? How did you find each other to help each other in that moment?
Oh my God, I can't actually remember now. I don't actually remember. I think I knew them anyway. Like I was maybe getting them to join, or they had a question. I do a lot of obviously Exeter's in my region as well, and I'm down there quite a lot. Like a few colleges down there as well. And yeah, we were kind of chatting about funding, and I said, oh, you should. They were like, oh yeah, I think I mentioned it to them, and then maybe the next year they were like, oh, we're gonna apply. We're going to apply for Momentum. But yeah, like it can be lots of different things. Like people sometimes won't necessarily want to talk to me about PRS, but funding instead. So it's a real mixture of sometimes like I'll sit with bands and artists and go, you should apply because have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? But then a lot of the time it's we're applying. Can you give us some tips or some help kind of thing? So yeah, it's because funding is so hard, it's really nice to kind of personally, being really selfish, reap the rewards of someone else's success because you're invested in them and you want them to succeed. So, yeah.
You're a great example of, the passion within the industry and obviously you want to help people and you want artists that you appreciate to succeed. And a lot of people would be scared to pick up the phone or contact you or others. And it's great to hear those success stories.
Oh yeah, I'm always like, just contact me. Honestly, just talk to me. I'm literally, I've got a degree in talking, and that's what I love doing. So yeah, and to be honest, it was one of those things that I really regret from starting my career at PRS. I never asked questions enough, and I never necessarily approached people. I remember sitting in like one of my first meetings, and it was like a big meeting room in King's Cross, and people were saying like, do you kind of get that? Because it's your first meeting, like you on board? And I was going, yeah. And I remember leaving going, I have no fucking idea what any of them just said. And it was so stupid because I was like, I've come out of here like not actually knowing. So now I can't even ask them because they're going to go, well, you lied. So I was like, oh, for goodness sakes. So I had to kind of like work it out myself, which is fine.
Get
but
your books back out.
Yeah. But it was really annoying, and like now I'm just like, honestly, my two colleagues down the street, I'm really annoying. I'm like, what does that mean? Can you tell me if that's right? Yep. Okay. Cool. And it is. I will just ask and ask, like, and you kind of have to, like, I think this, especially like when you have things like, I don't know, new things or new platforms like TikTok kind of coming up, you're like, okay, how is this going to impact like us and our members? We need to know, like, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I always say to people, like, literally, if you just want to meet for a coffee or a beer or whatever, like, I'm happy to, because yeah, I wish I did that more.
Well, in a minute, those that were too shy to ask a question, we'll head to the bar and maybe they can pluck up the courage. Final question for me. Looking back, you mentioned growing up, you went to the Isle of Wight festival, obviously, a few times. What's the most memorable band set or artist set that you can remember from that festival?
Oh, okay. It's gonna have to be the Prodigy. I think they were insane, and I remember it was raining, and I had a Mac on, like those horrible 50p a pound yellow Macs, basically, or blue ones that you can see through. It was obviously late at night. I just remember absolutely dancing till your feet were sore, but having two cans of beer in my hand at the same time. And when you're just kind of like, have you ever been to a gig or like a festival and you kind of sit there and like you kind of suck in everything? Like, everyone around you is having a good time. Everyone's just there to have a good time. And it was kind of one of those moments, I think. So yeah, that was that was a good one.
It was a live DVD the Prodigy brought out. I don't think it was from the Isle of Wight Festival, but I remember watching that and looking at the audience. And the audience looked like they were having the time of their lives. And there were little different pockets, some moshing,
Yeah.
some kind of in a circle, showing off to each other. And it was like, that's where the stories are. I want to know
Yeah.
all of their stories.
Yeah. I loved doing that gigs. Like, I just sort of sitting there and actually seeing the audience. I did it the first festival I went to this year was Latitude, and I went and saw Wet Leg at Latitude. And obviously they've just had their hits like Chaise Long and stuff like that on Six Music. Like basically just I've done so well off like kind of two songs. And it was the stage that I was working on, and it was rammed, like absolutely rammed. It was only like a capacity of like 200 people, 300 maybe. And it was that first festival back from pandemic, and everyone was just singing along.
It was literally the weekend that things opened up again.
Yeah. And I've never been to that festival before either. And it was quite special. It was quite emotional watching them, a band that I like, but then also kind of scanning around the tent, and the sun is shining, beers in hands, everyone's just singing along and dancing, and it's almost like you kind of forget.
Was it that beautiful forest stage?
It was the one, yeah. You got the river, and then the main stage this side. It's like that side. I can't remember what it's. I feel like I kept calling it the Avalon, and then my colleague was like, "It's not the Avalon because that's Glastonbury," and I was like, "I'm very confused." But it was so beginning with A.
Wet Leg are a great success story at the moment, and obviously Isle of Wight natives. So
yeah, I saw them last night as well, actually. So yeah, that was super fun at Brixton. But yeah, no, they're doing so well for themselves. So yeah, they're proper fun. I like them.
Fantastic. Well, I can tell that you and I could probably talk all night.
Probably.
We should probably adjourn and continue at the bar. So unless there's any other questions from the audience. Oh, there is. Fantastic.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, earlier on you were mentioning about the PRS foundation funding. What requirements are needed for that, for like the entry level funding?
So the entry level is what it says on tin. It's entry level, so you don't necessarily need a lot of requirements. There's all the eligibility online, which I wouldn't be able to off the top of my head know about for each of the individual funds. But those entry level funds of like, yeah, you could have written one song, or 10, or 100, kind of thing. Momentum, there is requirements, like you are expected at that point to be bringing on a team. Because unless you kind of like, oh, we're doing it ourselves and this is why we want to do it, but we would expect you to be at a point where you are paying a decent studio to record your album, or you have a manager, or you have a booking agent, or at least during kind of those talks with those kind of people, you need to have momentum behind you. Like, we probably should know who you are at that point as well. For Momentum Fund. So yeah, it's kind of those two things. I would kind of say, yeah, but I'm not sure eligibility off the top of my head, but yeah, I don't think you even need to be a PRS member, but you are expected to be. at some point. Like I think within the if you've received funding, you're expected to become a member like a couple of months like after, because you should be making getting those royalties.
I'm gonna ask another question. Thanks, Faisal. You've prompted me. We touched upon it earlier, but I never asked you a question. The diversity issue within music. We are seeing positive changes within organisations, better lineups at festivals, and investment in
slowly
talent. What do you make of it all? And there are specific funds available, aren't there, to try and make further progress?
Yeah. Diversity and inclusion. It's it's pretty shocking in the music industry, especially when I started. I mean, it's a lot better now, but there's still a long way to go. I feel like definitely from the industry side, there needs to be more representation at like CEO and board levels. Like we've got a female CEO, which is great. I'm a big believer in progression. So I feel like more companies should be seeing their talent internally before recruiting externally for stuff. One thing, like, I don't know, I there's so many talented people in internally at PRS. I'm like, you would be an absolute boss at that. You would be amazing. So I'd like to see like a bit more progression in companies. I think I think with festival lineups, we've got key change at PRS Foundation, which is getting conferences and showcasing festivals to sign a pledge of 50-50 gender split. It's still a nightmare though. One thing that really bugs me is when there's been a few festivals announced this year have done it, and it's just like a massive sausage fest at the like top line, like all of the headliners are male, and it's just like they're kind of making it up for it on smaller stages, but there's so many badass people who could do those headline spots now. And I kind of think it's a bit lazy sometimes. So that's a real bugbear of mine. But the key change is amazing. They've got so many organizations to sign up for it. We've also got Women Make Music Fund, which is pretty much the exactly same as the Open Fund, grants of $5,000, but it's pretty much just got a different name, and it's for women and marginalized genders as well. So I normally always kind of encourage women or, including gender fluid, non-binary, and trans individuals to apply through there, because there's got a bit more of a chance. And that can even go from like, if with our duo, we could apply because it's me, sort of thing. So it doesn't have to be like all female, all women. It can just be like one or two or whatever. So that's obviously quite cool and making a difference. But yeah, my bugbear is a bit of slow change. Change is changing, but it's very slow. And sometimes it takes, unfortunately, like an event for people to wake up, and that's fine, but actually this thing that should have happened long time ago. And obviously with more diversity and inclusion, like the more creative, like the more talent you get, like it's something I'm really, really passionate about in the industry. And yeah, I would like to see a bit more of, and hopefully going back to the kind of thing about schools, is seeing that representation and seeing people at that level, like I can do that. But when I came out uni, like I remember one of my lecturers telling me that like it's quite hard to be a woman in the industry, and it kind of puts you off straight away. It did me a little bit, but I'm a bit tenacious, so I just kept going, and I don't ever put down a fight really, but things like that, like comments like that, are a bit frustrating. And I think representation is key across festivals, behind the scenes as well. It's like sound engineers and studio engineers, really cool. So change is happening slowly, but is happening.
Needs to happen faster, and then needs to be normalized. Absolutely. So that you don't feel marginalized.
Yeah, and it's about being an ally as well. Like my team are great. Like they're all men, but they're so great. Like they've always, I've run into my issues being a woman in the industry where, people don't want to talk to me, or people will shake their hands but not shake mine. It's a very strange way, but they're such great allies, and you know, everything, and will always have me like have my back, or be like, you should do this, or have you met Claire? This is Claire here, and stuff like that. So yeah, they're brilliant, brilliant allies.
Fantastic. Well, good to hear this change, and hopefully more to come. And fantastic speaking to you, Claire.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for having me.
Really enjoyed it. Let's hear it for Claire Rose.